welcome to Left Night with Kendra Zach. And here's your host, Kendra Zach.
Zach, what the hell?
You're not Kendra. That's
no,
my
I'm obviously not.
Logan.
What's up, everyone? I'm Zach's brother, Logan. I am obviously not Kendra. I don't know how you messed that one up, Zach, because you tweeted about that I was going to be on the show like 30 minutes ago.
It's sort of just muscle memory now that I just sort of introduced Kendra and they start talking. I don't know. But I forgot you were going to be here as the co. Well, so I don't know what you thought you were doing, but you.
Well, I brought my piano.
I have the piano. I'm the co-host of the show. You are the guest host.
I thought I was the guest co-host.
Well, why would I give up being the co-host if I'm always a co-host for the guest?
Well, so are you saying I have to host the show right now?
I don't know anymore.
Should we just take it? Should we take it from the top again, or
no? This is live, Logan.
Is that how Twitch works?
Yes, Twitch is live. We can't take things from the top. Okay, well, and we're back. So, Logan, how are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good now. Now that I know that I'm live and things are back on the track, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing today, Zach?
I'm doing well. I'm surprised you were so. It must have been these months of working in more television sort of settings, because usually you're somebody that we think of as a live actor, a Broadway caliber actor, right?
It might be the self tapes. You know, we can't go into audition, so I'm filming it. So I'm used to being able to go back and edit a little bit.
Well, whatever it is, obviously Kendra could not make it this week. So in their place, I have my brother Logan, who is an actor and activist in the city of New York. The big onion, right? Yes.
I think that when you go to a Mets game and they hit a home run and the onion comes out, I love that.
Right.
Good time.
The city that sleeps only sometimes.
Once in a while.
Yes. Okay. So if you have any questions for my brother during this segment, anything about either Broadway or we're going to be talking about protests and the work that needs to be done at protests, or about New York, baby. Go ahead and leave those questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them. But I do want to talk about something that you have taken up a lot during the last 18 months, which is protests, and particularly protest marshaling. So how did that start up?
So, you know, like a lot of people, after we heard about George Floyd and watched the video, I was like, I got to get out there. I got to go be with people. I got to go say that this isn't right, and I got to stand next to other people and feel that, right? And so those first couple, you know, marches, I just went with some friends, and it was really amazing to see. I mean, having not seen people for so long, and then to see so many people there for the same reason, and everyone chanting some things that I thought everyone believed, like defund the police. It seems like some people have fallen off, but some of us have stayed true. And so I enjoy going to the demonstrations. I think there's really just something invaluable about holding space in public and being with people that builds community, that allows for conversation. And so I've really enjoyed going to these marches for different causes all over, you know, New York, mostly Manhattan. And then there was a march on Broadway about some problems that we have in the industry, regarding representation for trans people on stage, for Black and Brown and Indigenous people on stage, problems regarding producers and the way that producers treat people, and they were looking for volunteers. And so that was the first time that I actually volunteered to help with safety for a march, and I started protest marshaling on a bike. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really cool experience to get to sort of see the whole protest and make it flow smoothly, right? To make it something where the people who are holding the space can move through and do all that, and you feel like a real part of everything. Mm-hmm. And safety, is so important when you're in the street in New York.
Right. And a lot of people, I think, might not know what the safety job would be at a protest, especially if you're in the back and you're just sort of marching along and you don't know what maybe is happening on the fringes of it. So why don't you explain? So what are the duties of somebody who's working safety or marshaling for a protest?
So I typically do bikes for safety, which is helpful just because it's easier to block traffic with and everything. There's 3 jobs for bikes. Usually there's front line, there's blockers, and there's back line. Front line is essentially in charge of going ahead, making sure that the intersections that we're coming up to are we're prepared for it. We're prepared to make any turns, and they sort of set the pace for the march. A lot of times there'll be a foot marshal also setting the pace that really can communicate with the front line and everything. They're like the scouts. Then we've got blockers who your job is to ride up to the next intersection where the front line is, get in front of the cars, and hold that space until the march is cleared. It's cleared once the back line comes through and the marshal in the back, someone is in charge of yelling clear. Once you're clear, you're racing back up to the front to get to the next intersection to block.
Mm-hmm. I got it. And I assume sort of the route ahead of time, or does the route ever have to change mid protest, or?
Yes and yes, both. So there's times where when I started going to other marches and just showed up on bikes, I didn't really know where the route was. I just followed the front line, and I was a blocker. And so you can do it without knowing. As I've gotten a little bit more involved, I've sometimes had to do front line, sometimes had to direct the route, and there's stuff that happens in the street in New York all the time. Sometimes it's just a roadway that you can't go through, traffic that we don't want to go against, right? You mostly try to march with traffic unless you got a lot of people.
That New York traffic, though, right?
Yeah, it's something. Trust me, it moves. It moves more than they talk about. So sometimes you have to, find the way, and then every once in a while, half of the time, depending on the size of the march, sometimes police will be like, "We don't want you to march this way," and there's, trying to figure out how we can get to the destination through an alternate route and keep everyone safe at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And do you think when the police are holding you up, are they generally trying to like divert you to somewhere else? Are they trying to kill the march? Are they trying to kettle people? What do you think the cops are trying to do when they're?
It's I would say a majority of the time they're protecting private property.
Okay.
They're in front of like the more expensive buildings and things, trying to protect that and trying to get you to be somewhere
right.
less expensive. There's times where they try to get you to disperse. Of course, like if they block off your route and you disperse, they would love that, but that's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Who
would guess the cops would protect private property? I would.
Can you believe it?
You would never think that.
I know.
Just you like what? Like is that their job?
Well, I'm here with a bike trying to stop traffic, and they're protecting buildings.
Right. Yeah, you should be the guy with the whistle at the intersection.
Right. I mean
that part. That's the most sort of innocuous of all cop jobs. I think is being the guy at the intersection.
Right, and I think that showing up to these things, and working these jobs for safety, mm-hmm. really like make you realize who keeps us safe.
Right. So if you don't understand the concept of defund the police, it's as easy as instead of the guy with the gun, Logan is the guy at the traffic doing that.
I even wear my helmet when I ride my bike. Come on. Like, I could be that one who's just like, oh, careful here, everyone. There's a couple people in the street. Yes. Because people want to do that.
I do, from experience, as your brother, know that you maybe should not be given a whistle. But other than that, I don't see any good reason why you couldn't be a person who gets paid by the city to direct traffic.
Right, and the other thing you realize is that there's people who want to do those, like keep people safe and protect their communities and protect their loved ones, and there's a lot of ways, like there's ways to do that without, like you said, a gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now, say if you're somebody who maybe doesn't have a bike or doesn't feel comfortable trying to be a protest marshal, what if people want to help out with protests and maybe, obviously not be the type of person who has the microphone or has the megaphone, but they want to do some of the other types of support out there. What other types of support do protests usually need people to do?
Yeah, I mean, you can always foot marshal and just sort of be able to communicate between people who need to talk about things, and you're not so much in front of traffic. Medics are huge. When you have a big group of people on a hot day, you never know what can happen, or if something goes wrong with safety and someone you need people for if something goes wrong, So medics are really big if you're an EMT. And then the other thing is there's a lot of groups that provide like food and water for mutual aid for marches. So I think if you want to donate to those, if you can't show up, if you can't be there, or you don't feel comfortable being, the person between the cops and the march, or between the traffic and the march, that's always a great way to help with mutual aid. Like the People's Bodega is a great one that is always there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In Boston, it's usually Food Not Bombs is usually the ones who anytime there's a protest, you always know they've got to set up with some day-old pastries just to get something in your stomach. And, sometimes the protests start early and you didn't eat anything.
People at protests love fruit snacks. That's what I could tell you. If you go to Costco and get yourself a nice thing of those Mott's fruit snacks, get an extra one and donate it to someone, or donate that much money to a charity that helps with that, because people love it. It gets you another 40 bucks.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about stuff that's going on. It's particularly in the issues that people on Broadway are fighting about right now. What are some of the big? I know we talked about how some people thought that the pandemic would sort of maybe be a good reset moment to radically change how Broadway works. Obviously, that goal has been fallen short of. But what are some of the big sort of movements that you hear from people on Broadway right now that they're trying to do?
I mean, it's so much. It really is the big thing that we're trying to get the conversations to be about is our actors' equity has been really disappointing, with a lot of lip service and not actually providing the equitable changes that they say they're so invested in, and they say that they're spending all this money on initiatives and can't really provide receipts on how things have happened. And so there's been a lot of actors who I think are only now starting to realize what a labor union actually is, and how it is supposed to protect us. I think that a lot of people on Broadway, I know that a lot of people in theater have looked at the union membership as a badge of honor, of look at me, I'm in this special club, and
a status symbol.
And what was that?
A status symbol.
Right, a status symbol. And similarly, take this weird pride in getting abused as a non-union worker to make it to where they got. So I think that we have a lot of people in this industry starting to understand what a labor union does, and then therefore starting to understand where we've been failed. In not only in diversity, but just in protecting people from producers who want to exploit you for your labor and don't want to pay you. Like that's like the truth in so many ways, that these producers want to get away with paying you as little as possible. And our labor union is supposed to protect us, not them. And there's such investment in loving theater, because we love shows, but it feels like people love theater more than they love the people who make theater. And they're willing to run over people, exploit people, promise people things about representation that they never plan on doing, all just to get a show up, because the show must go on.
Yes. Who do you think the producers are making sort of empty promises about diversity and inclusion? Is that who you're?
I think that there's promises of from powers all over the place, and like also like because like also from the union of like, we're paying our dues. You're saying that those dues are going towards helping these people that a majority of the dues paying group believes is underserved, underrepresented on stage, and saying we're working on that when really just they're not not the way they say they are.
Right. And do you think that that's something that needs to be? Does the shows that get chosen, is that where the change needs to come from, or is it from the casting agencies, or like if you were going to sort of like, it's easy to say that everything is the problem, but if you were going to like hyper focus an initiative on something, like where would you focus on if you wanted to create more equity?
I mean, I think the Broadway League has a lot of power. But what shows, get theaters and
they sound very sinister. I don't know who they are.
I don't want to misrepresent what they do, but they're essentially the group that decides, right? Like the Broadway theaters are the theaters between 59th and 40th. Like they're the ones who decide that. They're the ones who decide the window for what the year is, what the season is, and then therefore I think they also have control over who they work really closely with theater owners.
Okay.
Another group who are bad largely.
Right. Yeah, I mean it seems like it's a tough thing because you do have to work against that sort of thing, like sort of what you get that like if you ask a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of like theater people, if you ask them who's underrepresented on Broadway, they might say me, and you have to sort of fight against that sort of that sort of attitude and somehow dig deep and find a solidarity at the center of that.
Right. I don't think it's necessarily finding who we need to focus like sort of our energy towards, but finding how we bring people together. Because it is that problem that you just said about, people want Black and trans people to have shows on Broadway, but they all not as bad as they want to be on Broadway. And it's a I think racism is bad, but not enough to get me to change my habit. And it's taught in the schools that you so much of how you have to work in this industry is you have to keep deal with abuses and all these things. So it's just ingrained in people that like giving up one shot is gonna blow it for you, or that like
right. The Eminem problem. You only got one shot.
Right. I largely think the problems we're seeing are influenced by Eminem. That's what I'm trying to say. I think we finally got there.
Oh man, are they gonna do? Wait, hold on. How have they not done an 8 Mile musical yet?
Yeah, I mean, the Tupac one had a pretty tough time, I think. But it feels like there's a little bit more of a linear story in
right, because it would be a jukebox musical, but also a movie adaptation.
You're checking two boxes there.
Oh wow! I guess we're the problem right now because we just wrote a white rapper Broadway musical.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the reasons why it'll actually probably would work and do pretty well.
Oh no, we're the bad guys now.
Focus your energy against me.
I think the trans representation on Broadway is very interesting as well, because you think about shows like Hedwig and the Angry Inch, or even Hairspray, where famous drag queen Divine played the mother in the movie, and then since then it's been played by cis men, usually played off as a joke. And it's interesting to me that the relationship that the money of Broadway has with sort of the actual queerness of in the industry. I haven't really thought that through, but I do think it's interesting how they were not afraid of it when many other facets of a society were afraid of it. But now when it's time to actually put forward and do something for trans people, suddenly now they become afraid of it.
Right. I think that there's a big difference between even in all of them, there's some part of the transness that is oh my God, or exceptional. Trans people just exist day to day in their lives. And so it's not just those roles. It's not just because even talking about John Travolta, that's not even on Broadway, but the mother in Hairspray, it's that's a joke. A person with a penis wearing a dress is a joke to you. Mm-hmm. And so there was some room where society didn't even want jokes about it, and it was progressive to make those jokes about it. It was queer and a part of the community. Mm-hmm. If Broadway is the industry it claims to be, that's so inclusive and based on these conversations about right and wrong and morality and caring about people, and a lot of what I think people think of it as, mm-hmm. The people need to be cast in roles in a non-exceptional way, where mm-hmm. they are just playing a person just like they, I would say just like they do it day to day, but the pressures, it's hard to say, but who am I to say I'm not a trans person? Mm-hmm. So I'll stop that ramble. But yeah, just allowing trans people to be cast in roles where it's not there's a big thing about Cameron McIntosh said it's a gimmick. The guy who has Mary Poppins flying over the audience, the guy who has a helicopter, a real fucking helicopter on the stage, and then says casting trans people in non-traditionally trans roles is a gimmick.
Wait, it's the guy who did Miss Saigon?
Yes.
So the guy who didn't even cast an Asian person, who did Yellowface in 1990, thinks that casting trans people in traditionally cis feminine roles is a gimmick.
Right. Wow. And it's just a complete lack of understanding, a complete lack of interest in understanding, and they've never had any consequences from not. And so mm-hmm. now that we're seeing the return of Broadway, without anyone losing money, losing a job, no one cares.
Mm-hmm.
Not no one, people care, but largely people in positions of power don't care. So we need, one way to start to get changes is you asked about casting. I think having more representation behind the table with casting offices is really important. I have been in for one non-white casting director in my 5 years in New York. So it's all just through a white gate.
No, that's rough. Okay, I think we're having a great conversation here, so I'm going to blow straight through our break, and I'm just going to let's talk about your comrades in IATSE who may be on the verge of a strike. First, can you explain to everybody who IATSE is and what's going on there?
So IATSE is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, and I made sure I wrote that down. Like, I'm not being like, that's what it is, and I know because I'm the best teacher. Like, that's.
I mean, you're not that good of an actor. I could tell you were reading off of something.
Okay. Sorry, no, I need a better teleprompter. They're the stagehands. They're all the people, a lot of the people who behind the scenes make theater and TV movies happen. Your stagehands, props, sound, lights, wardrobe, all of those fall under IATSE. And like, as an actor, IATSE is there. Like, those people who work those jobs are at the theater or at the set hours before you, and are on set at the theater hours after you. So they like, it is a hard working group of people. And the things that they're asking for are incredibly reasonable. Mm-hmm. Like, they have no guaranteed turnaround from the end of one day to the next day. They're asking for a 10-hour turnaround. Like, just, you can be on set until 4 a.m. and then be called back to set at like 8 a.m. the next day.
Okay. Yeah, that seems reasonable to give somebody 10 hours.
To sleep. It's basically common practice now to skip meal break for IATSE for crew. And so it's just like, oh, we're skipping meal breaks, and now you get your extra half hour or whatever time, but people need to eat. People are working, it's just wild exploitation. And then the weirdest one is like the new media contract, which is the one that's got like more details and more stuff in it, is that all things that are produced and made for streaming exclusively. So Apple TV, Hulu stuff, stuff that won't be syndicated at all, are on new media contracts. And the idea of that was when streaming was like, oh, is this going to be a viable option instead of cable? It was like an incentive to create those projects. Now it's proven. Now Disney has streaming. Everyone's got, I don't have to list them, everyone knows. Everyone's got streaming, and still these jobs are labeled as new media contracts. Mm-hmm. So the producer gets a break because we're not sure if Ted Lasso is going to be a hit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not totally sure why Ted Lasso is a hit myself, but that's another conversation for another day. We are just about out of time. Just as a clarification on that, IATSE, Indigo Alpha Tango Sierra Echo. If you want to look them up and look into more and see how you can support them, I recommend looking into them. The strike is coming. It will affect all of your favorite shows, and you have to be in solidarity. You can't just be a consumer. Anything else that you want to plug on the way out, Logan?
If you're interested in representation on Broadway, Broadway for Racial Justice are a really good group who are having a little bit of a tough time with funding and trying to keep all their efforts going. So if you maybe want to check out what they're doing, perhaps donate. They're doing good stuff.
Yeah. And of course, you can see Logan on Instagram at YoLoganJones and on Twitter at TheLoganJones. And you can catch him, speaking of streaming, in the second episode of Dr. Death on Peacock. I know you wouldn't plug that for yourself, so I wanted to plug it for you. But
Thank you.
that's our show. Thank you for joining in. Thank you to my wonderful brother Logan for coming on this week. We missed you, Kendra. We'll stay tuned for Quarantine Action Wrestling Vintage Slams.